Welcome to Atlanta Housing Unlocked, a podcast about creating equitable, affordable housing, elevating people, and transforming neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta.
Hello, we are back. It is the Atlanta Housing Unlocked podcast brought to you by Atlanta Housing. Guys, this is where we really just put our brains together to figure out solutions. And Atlanta Housing is at the forefront of that when it comes to affordable housing. We're talking about empowering people, empowering communities, sowing seeds, and transforming neighborhoods in the city of Atlanta. I'm Egypt Sherrod. Some of you guys may recognize me from HGTV, be it Property Virgins, which I hosted for many years, shining a light on this great city and our real estate market. Flipping Virgins, and most recently Married to, by the way, everybody's babies were safe on that, okay? And then, of course, Married to Real Estate, which is currently airing on HGTV, and we thank you all for watching. But I am also, in real life, a real estate broker, and I work with our community to help them recognize the dream of a home ownership. And there are challenges. We're going to just be honest about that. But we have some amazing voices talking to us today about the power of partnership, pooling our resources, but also diving deeper into Atlanta's actual communities and some of the history of that, preserving the history of it. So in this episode, we're going to discuss the value and future of partnerships to expand Atlanta's housing services. Of course, we can be great by ourselves, but we're so much better together, right? There's so much power in combining our resources. We're going to be joined by Trish O'Connell, Deputy Chief Real Estate Officer, and Ernestine Garey, Senior Vice President of Choice Neighborhoods. Mayor Andre Dickens, he has referred to Atlanta as a group project. And we've always said it takes a village, right? Boy, does it take a village. But as the city continues to grow and affordability becomes harder and harder for families and individuals to obtain, the solution is going to require unequivocally collaborative effort. So with the support of Atlanta's strong business and philanthropic community, Atlanta Housing is continuing to build partnerships that allow the agency to deliver the best possible services to residents. And these partnerships have enabled Atlanta Housing to solve interconnected issues with both efficiency and innovation, and new ideas to boot. Additionally, they've supported significant developments, including Bowen Homes, which we are going to discuss with our guests. And we've heard that mentioned a lot, even on the past podcast that we've had here. So we're going to dive into it. So Ernestine Garey is here with us. Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Happy to be here.
So Senior Vice President for Choice Neighborhoods.
That's correct.
That is. And you spent your entire career just touching the lives of the Atlantans right here, countless Atlantans.
Right. 30 years with Invest Atlanta and 6 so far with Atlanta Housing.
Well, thank you for being here. And then, of course, Trish O'Connell's here, Chief Deputy Officer of Real Estate. And you said, I've been in that position for 4 years. But for that, we were debating, right? Vice President of Real Estate Development. You said, well, I've only been sitting here for 4 years doing this job. But clearly you've been with Atlanta Housing for a very long time.
I've been doing real estate with Atlanta Housing for 20 years.
20 years.
Yes.
And you also support the Choice Neighborhoods program?
Yes.
Okay. You've led a number of development projects under the program. Tell us about those projects.
Oh, very different ones. So in my role, yes, I'm responsible for all of the vacant land development.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, the Civic Center, years ago, Techwood Homes, now Centennial Place, 4 or 5 different large projects under the Hope 6 program. Mm-hmm. And now we're working on Bowen Homes and actually bringing some public-private partnerships to help us develop the rest of our vacant land.
And so Bowen Homes, that's been consistent throughout all the episodes. And I don't want to assume that those watching or listening know what Bowen Homes is. Can you please dive in and educate us, ladies?
I would love to. So Bowen Homes is located on the west side, out Donald Lee Hollowell, probably within about 5 miles of 285. Mm-hmm. It's an old former public housing site that was built in 1964.
Is that considered Bankhead?
It is sort of the general Bankhead area, yes.
And so the history of that neighborhood, you guys were saying, that's where a lot of Atlanta's elite have come out of. A lot of the rappers in the hip-hop community. Mm-hmm. Outkast filmed their video there. Which video was it, guys? Somebody shout it out. Wasn't it Bombs Over
Bombs Over
Baghdad?
Baghdad.
Yeah.
It was the
Bombs
fact
over
that you knew that
Baghdad.
right off the top. Were you in the video?
No,
She's too young for that.
just the opposite.
But that's also why it's mentioned so much, and it's also a beloved community for so many. But addressing the issue at hand, it's a national issue, but we're dealing with it right here on the home front, of housing affordability. Not a challenge that can be solved in one swoop. Definitely not a challenge that can be solved by one department. Ladies, why do you think public and private support and partnerships are so important to getting the job done?
So I think they're important because we are addressing the issue holistically. So it's not just about building the housing units, but it's also about improving the neighborhoods around the former public housing developments. And it's about improving the lives of the residents. And so it does take a village. So you've got probably over 50 partners that we've engaged on the Bowen Choice Grant, which we just received in July.
Congratulations
and over
on that.
50 partners that we've engaged for the University Homes Grant, which we received in 2015. So university is winding down, Bowen is ramping up, and we've got our partners ready to go. So that's partners on the housing side, that's partners on the neighborhood side, public, private, philanthropic, all of them are necessary.
What is there a timeline attached? We've heard a lot about this 5-year strategy. Is this part of the 5-year strategy to deal with affordable housing? I know 10,000 homes is under the tutelage of Atlanta Housing right now, out of the mayor's 20,000 goal. So is this all expected to roll out within another 4? Because we're only, a year into the strategy?
We're not even a year in.
Not
we
even.
just received the grant in July.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just 5 months in right now. And it's an 8-year grant cycle.
An 8-year grant cycle. How much was awarded for this
40
project?
million for Bowen.
40. Now, to the average person, that sounds like a lot to get a lot done. Is it really for the scope of the project?
The scope of the project is actually right now $563 million. So that $40 million investment is leveraging all of those other public and private funds. And that really is the beauty of the partnership. Bowen is a 64-acre site. It's going to have 2,000 units, mixed income, developed on it when it's completed at the end of the 8 years. And we're going to break ground in a year. And so we're working already with our development partner, and we're moving forward like gangbusters, as we say.
So how does the Choice program work into this?
So Choice Neighborhoods, it's a program, it's a HUD program. And each year they make an allocation of funding to cities around the United States. So the choice for, let me go back to university, because university was our first choice grant that we got in 2015. And it was for the redevelopment of the former University Homes. Those from Atlanta will know that University Homes was right down the street from Clark Atlanta University. It was 675 units of public housing, all concentrated right there. It was demolished, similar to Bowen. It was demolished in 2009, and all of the residents were given vouchers so that they could go and get assisted housing elsewhere in the city of Atlanta. From 2009 until 2015, when we got the grant, nothing happened at the university site. So now we started ramping up in 2015, 2016, 2017. We got our first phase of multifamily going. We now will have, at the end of the day, 557 new units of housing at university. 63% of those will be affordable. And in addition to the housing, with Integral as our housing lead, we have neighborhood redevelopment that we've been doing. So that includes owner-occupied rehab loans. It included acquisition of vacant sites. So think about university is 3 neighborhoods. It's the Atlanta University Center, where University Homes was actually located. It's Ashview Heights, the neighboring West neighborhood, and Vine City. And so if you drive through there now, so we are 7-8 years into that grant. If you drive through that neighborhood now, you will see what we mean when we say we transform neighborhoods. Well, it looks completely different.
So I used to live in Mableton, and I worked in Midtown. So I'd have to take Donald Lee Hollowell straight down.
Mhm.
Now, I moved, and when I drove back that same route a few times, I hardly recognized even that corridor right there. I hardly recognized it. You can actually see it bubbling under.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be able to see the transformation.
Oh, yeah.
So University is next to Clark, Atlanta. Bowen Homes is further northwest, right off of Donald Lee Hollowell. So we've learned a lot from the university redevelopment. We're still learning a lot because we have the last phase of multifamily housing now under construction. And similar to Bowen, University has a rich history. It was the first public housing project in the nation for African Americans that was funded by the federal government in 1937. And so being able to redevelop on that site and go back and bring some of those residents back home, we've had a big homecoming event, is really transformative.
So that was the first, and I think let's just go there for a minute. So that was the first housing project developed by the federal government here in Atlanta, is
For
what you're saying?
African Americans.
Specifically for African
Right,
Americans.
because this is 1937.
1937,
So
things
we're
are still segregated. It's still Georgia.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So that model they then took and duplicated around the nation.
That is correct.
Yes.
Very interesting. I
correct.
don't think we knew that piece of history. So thank you for dropping that on us. And so how many partners came together for where we are now?
So I would say on the Bowen side, we had at least 30 different partners. So imagine we leveraged all of that money, that additional $523,000
In partnerships.
Yes, and $1 million in partnerships. Yes, and so we have a lot of dedicated partners. We're still adding partners as we begin the build out. So you cannot, you can't transform neighborhoods by yourself. And you can't build affordable housing by yourself these days. Yes, you can build a building here, units there, but to really do anything at scale, you have to have the partnerships. It's everybody's problem. Right?
Are these
It's not just our
nonprofits? Are they
problems.
corporations? What are the partners looking like? Is it that they're bringing equity to the table as far as their resources? Are they bringing real money to the table, or both?
Yeah, so they're when you think of choice neighborhoods, which is kind of the premier program where HUD looks to not just revitalize a public housing site, but also the neighborhood. I mean, there we have $23 million on the people side. So that is many of the same partners who are on the university grant are also coming to the table because they're able to see the impact of their investment by partnering with Atlanta Housing. And so, we have those. We have the housing folks coming to the table with, I think, $300 million. And then we have neighborhood partners. And what's unique at Bowen, and it is actually kind of rare, what's unique is that we already have some nonprofits and for-profit developers and investors who've been working in the adjoining neighborhood of Cary Park who are anxious to get moving but haven't had really the ability to bring all the infrastructure funding together. And so they were able to leverage something like $200 million of funding that they have planned for housing in the community. So not only will we be building the 2,000 units on the Bowen Homes, they'll be building, several hundred units inside the neighborhood.
So we talk about these changes, refacing, revitalizing Atlanta, and then you have those. And let's just go ahead and put it on the table. You have those who say, we're getting pushed out. We thought we'd be able to come back, but we are not having the opportunity to come back. What do you say about that?
So I will say on the university and also on Bowen, one of the things that we do that I'm really proud of is we make a concerted effort to keep in touch with all of our residents. So yes, they are given vouchers and they can take those vouchers and go around the city and find housing. But we know where they are, we know who they are, and we stay in contact with them. And so when we realized that we had a great chance to get this Bowen grant, we reached out to our residents and started engaging with them about what would you like to see if, in fact, we're successful? What would you like to see come back to the neighborhood? What's missing that would make you want to come back to the neighborhood? Is it a grocery store? Is it a park? Is it cleaning up the business corridor? And so we took their survey information and used that to craft our program for Bowen so they know what the development is going to look like. They are engaged in the process, and we want them to come back. So we stay in contact with them. We have monthly meetings with them to ensure that we're doing what they want and that we're going to be able to support them when they come back.
What are the top 3 things that the former residents are looking for in the neighborhood?
Retail. Retail, business development along the corridor, cleaning up the contaminated green space, more amenities for the children. So it could be schools,
playgrounds,
it could be
parks,
playgrounds, it could be a training center. All of those things have been factored in.
Obviously there's challenges when you talk about an undertaking like this. I don't think that we can just skirt over the fact that it's not easy. Number one, it's going to take time. Number two, yes, it's going to take resources and the pooling of efforts as well. But what are some of the main challenges that you guys are currently dealing with this project?
I can tell you on the housing side, it is the state of the financial markets right now. And really putting together enough funding as, construction costs are escalating and some of the funding is diminishing, just getting together to those deals. So that's difficult across the city. I mean, really across the nation, and is causing a lot of problems to creating affordable housing.
But it's a national problem right now.
It is a national problem.
And so we can't ignore it. We also know that real estate works in cycles. We are entering an unprecedented time right now. And so with that in consideration, if you're to take a bird's eye view, what impact do you think the current landscape is going to have on Atlanta's affordability? I mean, I know that Atlanta Housing is right there at the forefront, already rolling out the plan to attack, but now we've got these other things to think about, right? What do you think that's going to do over the next 5 years to the city of Atlanta and our affordability crisis?
Well, go ahead, Trish.
I was going to say, I think we're fortunate to have a mayor who has put affordability at the forefront. Right. And we have a very strong partnership with the city right now. That's one of the really unique things about Bowen is how much the city is invested in the revitalization as part of the mayor's overall neighborhood transformation plan. In the next 5 years, I think what I see is the benefit of the public-private partnerships is the only way we're going to get these things done, right? And so further levering the private sector's investment with our investment is how it's going to happen.
So you guys, obviously, you're dealing with the issue on a very big level. I'm a mom and pop. I own a local real estate brokerage. I deal with the folks every day who are getting priced out. The biggest complaints are it's investors, it's corporations, and they're buying everything. And, we can't compete. We can't compete. So obviously, with creating the affordable housing and really building up these communities, what are you guys doing or considerations, that you're taking to make sure owner occupants are in these homes? What are you doing?
So with both of the programs, University and Bowen, we have what's called a down payment assistance program where we are able to put funds to help buy down the price of the house so that it becomes affordable to families. And so with that, we do require that you stay in the home for 10 to 20 years. Because it's about neighborhood stabilization and long-term ownership, we're encouraging 20 years. And with that, any money that we have put into it, the down payment loan, whatever, we forgive that. And so the home buyer does not have to pay that back.
Well, I think that's super smart. I lived in the city of Newark, New Jersey for a while, and what was happening up there is investors were coming in, flipping the homes, moving out. There was no sense of community. So you had these nice fixed up properties, but it didn't last for a long time. And so they also did something similar where they offered the incentive, if you come and live and stay and build community and invest in these neighborhoods, stay for 10 years, then it's yours, right? We don't ask for a repayment of anything. It worked. It works. So I love that you said you guys are doing this and you're taking these considerations, because the last thing you want is somebody to come in and buy them all up in Airbnb and then we're back to square one.
And one thing that I'll add that we did at university with that choice grant is we went out into the neighborhood and said, if you are a legacy resident, which means you were here before we got the grant, we will give you up to $70,000 in rehabilitation funds to fix up the house that you're living in. If you are an owner and you live in that house, we will help you stay in that house by giving you this grant to fix it up. It's really a loan, but you don't pay anything on it, and it doesn't accrue any interest, and it burns off over 10 years. So we give you the $70,000, the house gets fixed up, and in 10 years, you have no debt from what we did.
And, right. So you've got the vouchers, you've got affordable rentals, and then you've got actual home ownership available with programs. Let's turn back to university for a minute, because you've got the old Roosevelt Hall that has been there since 1937. And I'm hearing this is one that you guys are actually revitalizing. It will be a part of the new university.
That is correct. So University Homes was demolished. The one building that was left was Roosevelt Hall, which was the leasing office, the community center, the laundromat, the doctor's office, the dental office, the social club in the evening, the grocery store. Everything the community needed was right there, because Atlanta was segregated and it really wasn't safe for African Americans to go anywhere in the city. So we, Atlanta Housing, invested $12 million in the renovation of this building, of this historic building, which is named for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who funded University Homes redevelopment. So we really cherish this historical building. We've got a history wall inside of the building. We got a 1940s map inside of the building. We have an old safe that we found in the leasing office that we were able to refinish. We've got some keys.
Was there any money in it?
No money in it.
Oh.
That was the first thing we looked for.
But that's the preservation portion of it.
That's the preservation. And we've got the history of the Atlanta University Center on the second floor, plus offices, a beautiful rooftop for special events. And so it is really the cornerstone of the new development at University.
I really appreciate you ladies coming and laying it out so beautifully the way that you have. I think knowledge is power. And what we have learned over the course of all these podcasts so far is people just don't know. They don't fully understand. And there's a lot of sentiment that comes with it. It is emotional to think about, because many of these neighborhoods that are now being revitalized, their parents were there as well. And they just want to know that it's still home. You know, there's still a place for them as well. What do you want the community to know, just as last thoughts?
I would say that Atlanta Housing and the city of Atlanta, because this grant came not just to Atlanta Housing, but to Atlanta Housing and the city, that we're fully committed to redeveloping and transforming these neighborhoods and the residents that will be coming back. And it's not going to happen overnight. It does take time, and it takes innovation. It takes commitment. As Trish mentioned, we've got to leverage our dollars. Like you said, $40 million sounds like a lot until you start doing one housing development, and that one development costs $64 million. And you got 8 years of commitments that you've made out there. So we just appreciate the partnership, and we are looking forward to just great things with Bowen.
And I would add that when you think about partners, while it's perhaps you're not getting money from that, it's the community. So these are community-driven projects. This is not just Atlanta Housing's vision for what should be brought back on these sites, but the vision comes from talking to the former residents, talking to the community, capturing their feedback, back and forth, iterative process until we develop it. Now, of course, it has to be financially feasible. But for example, at Bowen, we have a memory park, and that park is going to talk about some of the wonderful things that happened on Bowen that made it a community that is still in place today, even though they're living all over the city, but they still stay in touch. It's going to memorialize an event that happened, a daycare explosion, that is, the residents have asked that it be honored on that site. So history, community, that's what's the heart of what we do.
Sure. And I'm sure the residents appreciate that you guys are also investing in them just emotionally in asking.
Yes.
Often folks get forgotten, and that's where,
Mhm.
the emotions rise. But
Mhm.
when they recognize that they too have a seat at the table, that you want to hear their voice,
Yes.
that you want them to be a part of the change, I think that's the difference maker. So thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did you learn a lot or did you learn a lot? Okay, AtlantaHousing.org. All the information you need is there. We want to keep the conversation going. It doesn't end here on the podcast. Follow us on all social media platforms at Housing Atlanta. And thank you for listening to Atlanta Housing Unlocked.